everybody, welcome to the 4077. This is our panel on MASH. We're glad that you're here. We will go ahead and start by having everybody introduce themselves on the panel. So we'll start at the end and then just work our way down.
Hi, I'm Kyle Steenblik, a co-host on the Utah Outcasts streaming podcast, YouTube show thing. It's on the internet. I'm an occasional panelist on the Nerd Dome podcast, a part-time author, retired for about a year, during COVID, and nobody was writing, so I didn't either. But yes, also an author and a retired critic.
All right, my name is Joe Monson. I'm an editor and a writer, and I'm at a booth in the vendor's room there. It's the Bard's Tower if you want to come say hi.
I'm Steph. I am a podcaster. I'm one-third of a podcast called Cutscenes and Cupcakes, where we rate and review video games and baked goods, part of Still Enjoys Media. And I don't know why I'm qualified to talk about MASH, but here we are.
Yes, that's what we should do at the beginning, is throw all our credibility out the window. Great stuff. My name is Jake. I am a podcaster as well. We're on two different podcasts, Movies That Make Us and Stolen Droids. We work with Cutscenes and Cupcakes as well. So, and I have been a lifelong MASH fan. That's what qualifies me to be on this panel, Steph.
Okay, if that's all it takes.
But I wanted to start.
How many people out here could also include you here?
Awesome. Great. Yes, we're among friends.
Exactly.
We're among friends. Yay. All right, so I wanted to just start out by just asking the panelists, why do you guys love MASH? I mean, even after all this time, Steph, I would imagine you probably were not at the age range that you saw it when it first came out. I wasn't either, by the way. But why do you guys love MASH even after all these years?
Well, I am in the age range where I saw it when it first came out. Not the first couple seasons, but after that I remember watching it all the time with my dad, who used to be in the Army and said it was extremely accurate, even though it was making fun of stuff. I think the main reason why I like MASH so much is that there's a character literally everyone can identify with in the show. I mean, everybody can find somebody who they can go, yeah, I understand where that guy's coming from. So I think that's the biggest reason why I like it.
And if you watch it and Frank Burns is that character for you, you need to get help.
Well, thanks for calling me out like that.
Sorry, Kyle.
I'm kidding. Nobody identifies with him.
We have a ferret face on him.
I was maybe 3 years old when the finale aired, so very vague memories of when it actually ended, but there was that time frame a couple of years after where it went into heavy syndication, and it was always on. It seemed like it was on TV before school, after school, when you were not at school, before Saturday Night Live, after Saturday Night Live. I think there was a station that broadcasted 24/7, which was fine because I think I watched, by the time I was 12, I probably had watched the entire series out of order, probably, because I had no idea TV shows came in an order at that point in time. But it's stuck with me because it holds up. It really holds true to, well, not much has changed in 60, 50, 70 years since when the show aired and when it was set.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Always watching it when it comes on, whatever show it came on, cable was a thing. I started watching MASH with my grandfather when I was super young, and he got multiple myeloma, which gave him tumors in his spine, and so he watched a lot of TVs like Cheers. Good Happy Days, MASH was a huge one for him, and I was a little kid and I'd take him orange juice in a bowl and he would let me very gently sit next to him because it was super painful for him, and we watched MASH together. So it's a huge family thing for me. I think everyone in my family has a story like that, where it just started with the one person and it just became a thing for you to enjoy laughing together, thinking about some bigger questions that it brought up for you. And I think I have seen it multiple times out of order every time. I don't know if I've ever watched it all the way through from season 1 to season 11.
I like that you started out by like throwing all your credibility out the window, and then you've just slowly built it back up. Similar, I watched it with my dad. Anytime that, I couldn't get to sleep or wasn't feeling well, we sat and we watched MASH, and it became kind of my comfort food growing up, and kind of that series that I can always go back to. I mean, last year when the pandemic hit, everything kind of closed down, MASH was like the first thing that I wanted to turn on and watch, because I felt like if anybody knows how to get through a really crappy situation, it's the people at the 4077th. And so that's where I go to for that comfort and that, I don't know, that consolation that I need sometimes. So, MASH obviously is a very impactful show, super successful over its 11-season run. It was very well received by critics, very well received by audiences. The finale, we'll talk about the finale a little bit later in the panel, it still holds the record for the most viewed TV episode of all time. They did cheat, it was like 2 hours long, so it wasn't like a normal episode, but so it's had a huge impact on our culture as well as on the industry, and I wanted to talk about those two different things. So starting with our culture, how has MASH, do you guys think, impacted our culture and our society as a whole?
You start with a tough question.
I know, I'm sorry.
Like, do you know what time it is?
Okay, do you want me to start with industry instead? How has it impacted the industry? Let's start there. We'll come back to the cultural stuff.
I mean, it kind of revolutionized the idea of TV being sitcoms. Like, with laugh tracks, heavily scripted. I mean, granted, MASH was heavily scripted, but the format of television sitcoms and dramedies, this is where dramedy comes from. But TV dramas and TV sitcoms were completely turned on their heads by this one show.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, I read Alan Alda's memoir before the prepare for the panel, and he actually mentioned how he disliked when people called MASH a sitcom because they dive into so many dark, deep, meaningful problems throughout the show. And while it is like funny is the huge basis of it, humanity and the like life is the bigger part of it, and the fact that you can laugh through it is what makes it worthwhile, especially dealing with a topic as heavy as war and a brutal war like the Korean War. You have to have that kind of outlet, and I think we see throughout other characters people who don't have an outlet the way that Hawkeye or any of the other characters do, how it affects them.
And I think it was extremely effective in the way it used the humor, because the humor was always there for the most part, but because of that, they could do serious, like really serious bits here and there. Like just the other day I was I've been re-watching the whole thing just lately, and I saw the Dream episode, which there will probably be some people who go, oh yeah, I know which the one where they've been working straight for like 36 hours or something, and they're all trying to catch a nap here and there, and all of them are having these really weird dreams about things that are important to them. And the way MASH could approach that was because it had that humor running in there, and then they would throw in those little bits seriousness, where they were addressing something that they thought needed to be addressed in a way that made it so that people could relate to it and kind of not feel like they were being attacked by the show or something like that. They were able to make commentary without stirring up hornets' nests so much.
Yeah, I think everything you guys have said, I agree with. I really feel like it broke the mold of just being what you expect from a sitcom. And I know Alan Alda doesn't like it if we call it that, but it's a comedy that happens. Yeah, so it's okay. But it does really kind of break that mold. I think of a lot of the sitcoms that do come to mind really quickly, like the Full Houses or the Home Improvements, or like these really formulaic, same kind of thing happens. They wrap everything up in a half hour. And sometimes you'd have episodes of MASH where at the end, it wasn't wrapped up in a nice little package and a happy ending, like sometimes, because that's the way war is, And I think about how, they work so hard to put these soldiers back together physically, and how many times do we see that emotionally and mentally they're not. And I think that's an interesting thing about MASH, and I want to kind of go there a little bit. They dealt with a lot of pretty heavy issues. What are some of the issues you guys can think of just off the top of your heads that they dealt with in MASH?
Mental health.
Mental health? Yeah.
Sidney Friedman, awesome.
Yeah, he was
He was a great side character. I loved it. I loved the Sidney episodes.
I mean, is there really a topic that they didn't touch on? I mean, they touched on homosexuality in the military, which was, when I stumbled on that episode as probably 15 years old by the time I found that particular episode, I was a little blown away that they would even try to tackle that in a show that was made in the late 70s, very early 80s. They did a lot with mental health. They talked pretty frequently about faith and the challenges of faith in those kind of situations. Medicine, I think, was part of it too. I seem to remember there being a lot of talk of healthcare.
Yeah.
Father Mulcahy is such a fantastic character. I just watched an episode this morning, actually, where there was a Buddhist wedding, and he was explaining to everyone around him from the Judeo-Christian way of thinking what this means, what was going on. And it was really cool to see a man of faith exploring lots of things and not just his own viewpoint, but being able to talk to other people about the other things going on. I thought that was a really amazing character point to him.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting when you bring up faith, the way that they dealt with it was always, even though they would challenge it and look at it from different points of view and different perspectives, it was always in a respectful way. It was never like whatever faith you might come from, you can see yourself in there a little bit. It's not bringing anybody down, but it's asking tough questions, I think, and putting some of those things into action. Thinking of the characters, and I agree, I don't think there was any issue that they didn't tackle. When you think of when it was made, I mean, in the 70s and early 80s, like, it's amazing some of the stuff they talk about. The way they portray, like, mental health and PTSD, I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Well, and the way they tackle racism in it as well, and not just racism with the American troops, but the feelings towards the people they're fighting against is really impactful. And obviously you have the antagonists like Frank Burns, who is very anti-anyone who's not on their side, and to have people, especially people in power, talk about the other sides as human beings is really very cool.
And not even just the other side, because you have Frank Burns and other people, Charles, were not very respectful of the Koreans. A lot of times they treated them like, go back to your own country, was something that Frank said multiple times.
Yeah.
It was so absurd hearing them say that, because it's like, what are you talking about? These people live here. This is where they were born. And you hear things like that, and I think that was one of the geniuses of MASH, and the script writers was that they could put in things like that where they could show how absurd some of the attitudes that Americans have, especially when you go to other places in the world. I've lived other places in the world, and some of the Americans, a significant number of them, would have the most bizarre attitudes, like they expected everyone to cater to them and speak English if English wasn't the language spoken there and stuff like that. And MASH addressed stuff like that. It was just absurd when you'd hear them say that. You're like, are you stupid? I mean, really, it was so absurd. And speaking of absurd things, it also addressed absurdity in the military.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were some of the things that they had to go through to get supplies they needed, like the whole thing with the incubator.
Yeah.
You can have a pizza oven, but not an incubator. It's like,
it's comforting to know that absolutely nothing has changed.
And to talk about an absurdity in real life, when my dad was in the military, he was a company clerk, and the military paid bonuses. I don't know if they still have this thing, but if you had an idea that would help make things more efficient so things cost less to do and stuff like that, he had an idea for one because they had a single form that was used for two different things. This form had the top page and then 3 other pages duplicate with carbon underneath them. And for the one purpose, you would throw away the 2 bottom pages, and the other one you'd throw away the 2 top pages. And he sent in the suggestion, how about we use the same form for all of them and just kind of split it up? And they told him, no, they won't do that. And it's like, it's just the absurdities. I mean, you see Radar dealing with that all the time about initialing to indicate that you had signed and signing to indicate that you initialed, and you have to fill out this form to indicate that you're going to fill out this form, but if you fill out a different one, then you have to fill out another form stating that instead of this form, you filled out that form. I mean, that's just crazy, weird stuff that you have to do in the military that doesn't make any sense to normal people. And I doubt it actually makes sense to them either, but they just do it themselves.
They do, yeah. So I think one of the things that draws people to MASH, or at least allows them to kind of delve into these deeper issues, is how much people love the characters in MASH. I think that people keep you rooted to the show. And so I wanted to go through the characters, not like spend a lot of time on each of them, but just what do you guys want to share about each of them, I guess. But we'll start with the original characters, right? So Colonel Blake, what are your thoughts on Colonel Blake? We'll go through them quick. No.
I like Colonel Blake. It was really sad when he died.
Spoilers.
It's been on for 50 years. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on here.
I don't think it's been 15 years. 40.
For that episode, it hasn't been, but
Yeah.
That's 50 years.
it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the first.
49 today. I'm close.
Yeah.
Yeah, Colonel Blake was the first. He was the first camp daddy. He was everyone's dad.
Yeah. I love the relationship between Colonel Blake and Radar.
I do too.
Just because Radar didn't have a father growing up, and Blake was kind of Zod's father on the show. So, what about Trapper?
Trapper's side story where he wants to adopt a Korean kid is one of my favorite side stories. You get to see a different side of Trapper than just womanizing and wisecracking.
Because otherwise he's not really a great guy most of the time.
Yeah.
Maybe he might be one of the most underappreciated characters from the show.
Yeah.
There was a lot of subtlety in there.
Did they try to do a spin-off with him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Trapper and me?
Yep. They did. Yeah, it was a different actor.
Oh.
What about our very favorite ferret face, Frank Burns?
The everyone's favorite foil.
Yeah.
he was really used to prop up the idea that jingoism is rarely a good thing. That was never a good thing. Probably the only character from the show that I can't think of anything redeeming about him.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else has at least something.
Yeah, I think he's one of the ones who didn't ever really grow in the show. There are very few characters that didn't grow, and he's the one who really stands out as well.
Yeah.
Someone who never changed. He was always the same. Even when they got rid of him, he was still the same.
Yeah.
So he kind of felt bad for his family and stuff because he was a jerk. He just really was a jerk the whole time.
Well, and you could see that as the show started to shift, because really after Blake leaves the show and Trapper leaves the show really started going in a different direction, and Frank didn't fit the new direction. There was just no subtlety to Frank at all. He just was what he was, and that was an awful person. So.
I think Larry Linville did a really good job of it.
Oh yeah. Larry Linville's probably, he was a beautiful human being.
Yeah, he's a fantastic actor at being such a douchey man.
Yeah. And what's interesting is to watch episodes of Frank now and think, I hear people say stuff like this on social media all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
everybody.
So then I just unfriend them.
Everybody knows a Frank Burns now.
Yeah.
So you just need to start responding with #ferretface.
Yeah, maybe start calling ferret face. I like it. All right, what about Margaret, Hot Lips Houlihan?
Woo, right?
Who's here, right? Have you guys gone to get pictures with her yet, or autographs?
She is one of the only, she's the only main female character, right? And she is such a complex character, and I can appreciate that about her. She's all army, which is how she grew up. But she has this soft side to her that comes out every once in a while. And I think once she finally does kick Frank Burns, you see the better part of Margaret. The part of her that's more confident, not going off after a married man, able to live her life more fully. So.
Yeah. In the beginning, they really are kind of two peas in a pod. But man, as they start separating, and then when he's not on the show anymore, I think she's the opposite of Frank. You see so much growth with Margaret. She may be one that you see the most growth with by the end of the show.
And then,
do you want to come up to the microphone? Tell us what you're... No, come on up. Listen, we're all friends here.
We're not strict.
No, it's a really good point.
Not even on?
Yeah, you're good. We can hear you.
I don't know without a mic, so. And then when they, so she's just basically the sum of her characters, just these sort of two halves, regular army and then also having an affair with a married man, which is very telling in her self-esteem level. And then even before Frank Burns leaves, even before she, because I've just been rewatching the series, right, that I grew up with, and very powerful series in my youth. And even before she meets Penobscot, you see little snippets of her going, "Shut up, Frank," or just, Frank, he almost died, all these things, right? Commenting on his poor surgery skills. But I never hear anybody in any sort of venue talk about the fact that slowly but surely she becomes this fully formed character. And she's not just just the girlfriend for Frank's adultery and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering if you have any input in that, because when I was young watching this in the 70s, it was just a funny show.
Right.
And then watching it as you get older and you've gone through the women's lib movement of the 70s yourself, you realize she became a fully evolved character. They talk a lot about, back to Wallace, in sci-fi or regular Hollywood stuff. And he talks about her in MASH. So, your thoughts? Thank you.
I actually was having that thought as I've been rewatching it too, where I'll disagree a little bit with your comment about Frank not having any redeeming qualities. His one redeeming quality is that he helped Margaret change. Because at the beginning, they're both just insipid twits.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't like them at all. At the beginning, they're both jerks. They both are always looking for ways that they can write someone up or put them on report or whatever. That's the whole sum of their characters. But as Margaret starts noticing that Frank really is a jerk and that she really has no business messing around with him because he doesn't do anything to bring out any good qualities in her, as soon as she gets rid of him, you kind of see her character blossom and become much more than just the twit that she was at the beginning, which I think is a great thing because she's an awesome character.
Yeah.
Once she gets rid of Frank.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, no, that is the one thing. I've always really enjoyed the fact that you can track the progress of the entire series by how Margaret is developing. She's really the weather vane for the entire show.
Well, and I really appreciate that. There's the one episode where her and Hawkeye have the thing, but they never put the main leading lady and the main man together for her. That's not the thing, which is like a foil for every main movie, main two characters.
and there's not the will they, won't they.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that about it. I won't get into how much I hate the Hulk and Black Widow thing, which is where they bring the people together that I hate. But, so I really do appreciate that.
That's good, this isn't a Marvel panel, so.
It comes in all.
So, I would say on Margaret's character, in the beginning, I didn't like her at all, and I think that's pretty normal, but at the end, I would love any of my daughters to grow up and be like Margaret Houlihan, because she is just awesome in every way. She's capable, she's a leader, she doesn't need a Frank or a Penobscot in her life because she has got gained the self-confidence herself, and she's just awesome. Did you have a question?
I had a little bit of a comment first.
Sure.
I watched MASH through the lens of a military brat and then later as a Marine. I've got to say I saw Margaret as the typical trope. They have this thing in the military where women only gain rank by sleeping around, and that's what we see in her in the beginning, but she does eventually grow to realize that she can be an officer on her own and gain rank on her own without needing men to promote her because she's pretty or she's having sex with them, which is something they never address even now in modern military, that there's this trope about females. And then Frank is another trope that, and yeah, he doesn't change really, but it's the typical failing upwards. I had a lot of corporals and sergeants above me that could not do their job, that didn't know how to do their job, and I had to hold their hand and tell them how to do it because they failed upwards. Like they were saying in the actual episode, how when he left, he became in charge of a department in St. Reed or whatever military hospital. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're both very heavily troped.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your service.
The accuracy, the military accuracy, even in those respects, failing upwards, officers being pigeonholed because they're female. It was incredible to see, really.
not going to make it through all the characters, but I do want to hit on Hawkeye, because we have to talk about Hawkeye, because he's the glue that holds the show together. What do you guys think about Hawkeye and Alan Alda, who is a national treasure? And if you say anything negative, I'm going to kick you off the panel. Just kidding.
Are you?
Well, we'll see. Depends on what you say. We'll say that.
I love Alan Alda. I think he's wonderful. I think his character, he brought Hawkeye to life. I think that he played both dramatic and comedy so well together. And he's the quintessential, like he's the character. I don't think that should have been matched without Alan Alda.
Yeah, in the original movie, his character was played by Donald Sutherland, and I just can't imagine Hawkeye being anybody other than Alan Alda, even though Donald Sutherland played him originally. Just because, while Donald Sutherland is a really good actor, he's not Hawkeye. He doesn't exude Hawkeye-ness, I guess.
Yeah.
And even in later stuff that Alan Alda did, you could see bits of Hawkeye woven through everything. I think he's pretty much become Hawkeye, whether he wants to or not.
Yeah, when he was on West Wing for the last season of West Wing, running for president, I felt like I was watching Hawkeye run for president, even though he was running as a Republican, which it was weird for Hawkeye.
Yeah, that was my headcanon too. That's how I saw it. Hawkeye and Alan Alda in particular, that's really my first memory of solid comedic performances, being married so well with a solid dramatic performance. When I think about my earliest memories of comedy, as far as acting and performing goes, Alan Alda's what I think of. Before I think of the Marx Brothers or Charlie Chaplin, Alan Alda, Hawkeye that's what I land on.
Yeah, I think he also had a huge impact on the show beyond just his character, because once he started being one of the writers and one of the directors and kind of overseeing other people writing scripts and stuff like that, the show changed significantly in what it did at the very beginning. In the first couple seasons or so, it was pretty much the same every episode. You'd have the comedy and weird things happening and stuff like that, but they didn't address as much. There were a few, but not as much. They didn't go after some of the issues that they started doing a lot more regularly later in the series. So I think he had a huge impact that way too.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I think the Hawkeye character is, he's the heart and soul of the whole camp. Potter's in charge or Blake's in charge on paper, but Hawkeye's the heart and soul of the 407-7. And I think, and this is going to segue into the finale, because I think we have to talk about the finale. I think that's what makes part of the finale so powerful, because he was the heart and soul of MASH. He was the heart and soul of the 407-7, and to have him have that kind of a breakdown at the end was really powerful, because even he, with all the laughing and the joking and all the crap that he went through, wasn't above a breaking point. But let's talk about the finale. A huge episode, still holds the record today. What are your thoughts on the finale? It is the most viewed television episode in television history. Should it be? Is it as good as everybody thought it was going to be? Did it live up to the expectations, the hype?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a great answer. Really? I don't think there's anything else to discuss.
No, I'm going to say, in some respects, maybe not, because it doesn't work outside the context of the entirety of the show. If you don't have the weight of 10 or 11 seasons behind it, then it would have very little impact. Now with the weight of 11 seasons behind it, and there's a huge impact. But I don't know that 2-hour finale, I don't know that it really stands up as its own thing.
I could agree with that, but I think I would still say it's a great episode, even though it doesn't hold up outside of the context, but I feel the same way about like Endgame, for example. And again, this is not a Marvel panel. This is the second time we talked about Marvel, I'm sorry. But like Endgame has, for me, it was very impactful, but that's because there were 10 years of movies that came before it that led up to it. I think that's very similar with the MASH finale, I agree.
Well, I know we skipped the question at the beginning about the impact on what?
I feel like we kind of got into it still a little bit.
Okay, but so like as a child of like the Afghani wars, I can imagine that Korean War. I might have similar feelings as someone that was a kid of the Korean War might have. Like not necessarily knowing all my words, all my feelings behind it, the words to put about how I feel about it. And so to see people portray things that I can't put into words, and then to see it in that way, I think that might be a huge reason why it was so impactful, that finale was so impactful. You get to see it, and you get to see not the best happy ending, but an ending, I don't know, not a bow, but I don't know, some sort of package. So, I don't know, I feel like it should have been as impactful. It was super impactful.
It's a package wrapped up in
something.
olive green
Yeah.
paper.
And some fatigues.
Yeah. So, with all the impact that MASH has had over the years, and the way that we've looked at it, I mean, really, when you look in the 70s and 80s, there's not a lot of other shows that are military-based that depict the military the way that MASH does, from the point of view that MASH does. Is there anything in television today that you think is similar or successful in doing kind of that same thing?
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
That was my only one that I can think of.
Not military, obviously, but the way that they talk about policing.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially this current season, the way they're addressing a lot of the issues, I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a great example.
Yeah, that's the closest I could think of. They don't.
China Beach?
China Beach. Wow, that's one I haven't thought of in a long time. Wow.
I think Grey's Anatomy is hitting some parts of, like, insurance, problems with insurance, problems within the medical field as well. But who's still watching that? Definitely not me.
Sure. Yeah, but I think like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and like MASH, they're both 30-minute long episodes, episodic comedies. But they get into these issues that you're like, wow, I can't believe they actually went there. Although I think Hawkeye is better than Jane.
I agree with that.
Okay, and I just wanted to make sure.
And my family wonders why I'm a pacifist, and yeah, we don't.
I don't know how you could watch MASH for all those years and not be a pacifist in some way. So.
Well, that's the wonderful thing about MASH is so many different people from different sides of both sides of the political spectrum enjoy it and love it, and we shouldn't take that away from people.
I think that's kind of along the lines of what I said earlier. There's something that everybody can identify with in MASH, which a lot of shows these days you don't necessarily have that, because you had conservative characters, really liberal characters, and everything in between, and you had everybody. Everybody has somebody that they can say, I know that person, or I am that person.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we want to leave some time for questions, so if you guys have any questions, all right, go ahead.
Okay, so it's kind of like a two-part question. One is, which episode hit you the hardest, and what is your favorite quote from the TV show?
I'm going to let you all go first.
I just watched an episode where Klinger told Moretti that if his face was on his dog, he would shave his butt and teach him to walk backwards.
One of the best insults on television ever.
Yes.
Frank, or Hawkeye told Frank in one of the episodes, Frank, you are 10 of the most boring people I know.
So good.
My turn?
Yes.
MASH is this show that's just been going to last forever. It's generational, it's been syndicated, and a lot of these people here are just so young they don't remember the original. I mean, the original time it ran. You know, I can turn it down and almost do half the dialogue now.
Yeah.
It just continues on WeTV and everything else. And the magic of MASH is because it was revolutionary in its time. It's anti-establishment, anti-war. It followed after the model of Bob Altman's movie, which I heard that he really didn't care much for the series. He says, well, Elliot Gould and Donald are just not Hawkeye and Hawkeye and Trapper. I used to think of BJ. And, you know, it was a whole different kind of a movie with Robert Altman, where it was, you know, and I think it went in a different direction, which was good, and I think it revolutionized television because there was just a lot of things that just were not talked about back then. We had things like Hogan's Heroes, which was another successful sitcom, which flew in the face of Nazis. You know, and I'm impressed that they lasted so long without having, you know, some of these Nazis come after Bob Crane and all them guys and throw them in the Colonel Klink, you know?
Right.
But so anyway, my comment is I just think MASH is going to last forever. The way that, you know, and Hawkeye, actually, Alan Alda, I heard, was in every episode. You might want to research that because I
think that's right.
He was the only principal that was in every episode. So, yeah, anyway, you can comment on that how you will.
Yeah.
I agree. I think MASH does an excellent job of being anti-war but pro-military service people. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
Which is a really fine line to walk, too.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that, where you're simultaneously saying war is worse than hell, which is another one of my favorite quotes, where Hawkeye talks about war is not hell, because in hell everyone who's there belongs there. They chose to go there, but in war, there are lots of innocent people.
I just wanted to add one more thing I forgot to say is that since I watch it so much now, I start watching the continuity and seeing how many things actually, you know, it actually lasted longer than the Korean War, which is interesting.
Yeah, it did.
And so, you know, it goes on for eons, and I think the Korean War was, what, 4 years?
Yeah.
And, you know, I noticed there's a lot of things in there that weren't correct for the time. You know, you talk to some of the writers and some of those people, Gene or whoever, and Gene Reynolds, or, you know, and I think a lot of them just want to get it out to deadline so fast. I don't think they did all their research, and a lot of things just leak in that you kind of notice weren't really accurate for the Korean War.
Yeah.
Some of the music and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there were challenges. They couldn't even film it in Korea.
In Malibu.
Or got a cameo on NCIS Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are your thoughts on the guest stars that they have? Say like Lawrence Fishburne, which I was shocked to see near the latter seasons. What other guest stars would you guys remember seeing on the show that popped up and you're like, wow, they're really famous today?
Yeah.
I'm shocked at.
I think a couple of I know John Ritter was on there for an episode. Patrick Swayze, Ron Howard was on there. I mean, he was a big star already because
Edward Herman was on there.
Yeah.
Alan Alda's father came on a couple times as well.
Yeah.
That's right, he did.
Yeah, I think there was an episode where it talked about this with his father and his brother too.
Yes. Yeah. And in his memoir, sorry, I keep bringing it up, but he talks about how it actually helped him push through some of his issues with his father, who was also an actor before, and that's what persuaded him to be an actor. So it's interesting. Read his book; it's good.
My girl's wife was in the local line that played little periodic parts in the show.
Oh.
Was she one of the Nurse Abel Baker, Charlie, and Dish?
All right. We didn't. No, please. We've got time.
I feel like we can't talk about MASH without talking about the one quintessential, like you think of MASH, you instantly think of what episode?
Yeah. All right. favorite episode, the one episode you think of when you think of MASH.
That is a terrible question.
It is.
Because it forces me to try to remember the names of episodes. And at this point in time, isn't MASH just one singular long episode and it all just blends together? The one that I always come back to is Dreams. I've watched that one episode dozens of times now. Yeah, that's the one that it kicked me in the teeth the first time I saw it, and it still does.
I think my favorite one is the one where Radar goes home. The reason for that is all through the series up to that point, and that's, I think, like the 4th or 5th episode of season 8 where he goes home. All through the series, he's this innocent, naive kid, basically, who is really good at his job, but he's always trying to be one of the guys and trying to learn from Hawkeye and whoever, trying to learn how to get the girl and stuff like that. And then he finally gets the girl in that episode without being anyone other than himself. He finds someone who appreciates him for him, not because he's cute or anything like that. She appreciates him because he's him. And I thought that was a great way to send him off. So.
I think the one that I think of most is definitely Colonel Potter and Hawkeye go to a different MASH unit to help out. And they drunkenly drive home on the way back after that and get attacked. And Colonel Potter has to convince Hawkeye to defend themselves, shoot the gun, and he says, "Fire your weapon, Hawkeye," and he looks at the gun and says, "You're fired," which is just such a Hawkeye line. And then instead of shooting at anyone, he just shoots wildly up in the air, which is 100% what I would do because I know absolutely zero about guns. But I think that's just, excuse me, good, clean fun and a quintessential Hawkeye. And Potter, I love Colonel Potter's, him and Colonel Potter's relationship as well. So.
I would have to say the Jesus episode where they get a patient who thinks he's Jesus. That's one that I've seen multiple times and enjoyed every time.
Yes, I noticed last year they did a posting of various clips of the restrictions we have to follow, like social distancing. And it's like, wow, these people actually know how to do this way back then. And also, what's your thoughts on the minister, the father? What are your thoughts on that character?
Father Mulcahy is a national treasure. If any of you say anything negative about him, you're off the panel. No, I love Father Mulcahy.
He was light, humored at times, and deep at times, and I think it just brought him to life.
I was very surprised to learn in my life that very few priests are actually like that. He was very compassionate. He was one character you could always count on for genuine kindness in the show.
Except when he's telling you to love one another or I'll punch your lights out.
Yeah. Well, it's kind in a way.
I feel like if you have kids, you understand that line very well.
All right, we do have time for one more question, so.
Hi guys, so I was just wondering, what do you think the impact of having Harry Morgan on the show went from a very early kind of oddball cameo character to coming into someone like Colonel Potter in, I think, the beginning of season 4?
He actually played 2 different cameo characters in the beginning, 2 different, I think one might have been a colonel and one was a general. So.
I liked Potter better than the crazy general, so, for sure. I mean, and it happens on TV shows. We've seen it in Doctor Who, we've seen it in other episodes where they come back as a primary character. But I I think Harry Morgan was great. I was always more of a Potter fan than a Blake fan, so. All right, let's go down the panel really quick. Everybody tell everybody again who you are, where they can find you, whatever you want to push in less than a minute.
In less than a minute. Utah Outcast, somewhere on the internet. The Nerd Dome podcast, also somewhere on the internet. And my book, The Tales of Weirderland, on online bookstores or at the Nerd Store.
If you want to come say hi, I'm at Bard's Tower. I'm going to plug something that's not mine and isn't available at Bard's Tower. I don't think anybody here is actually selling it. But this is the Secrets of the Mash Mess, the Lost Recipes of Private Igor. It actually has really awesome recipes in it that actually taste good, as opposed to the SOS that they served in the military. They still do, and they still call it that too.
I'm sure that the creamed corn recipe.
This is full of photos from the show and quotes from the show and stuff like that. So it's fun to read just for reading. So look it up. It's on Amazon. I don't know how much it costs. I forget.
Yeah, I'm 1/3 of Cutscenes and Cupcakes, the podcast. You can find it all the places where amazing podcasts are, so come check us out.
And I'm, again, Jake with Movies That Make Us, and I'm going to plug the next panel because it has my co-host, Val, from Movies That Make Us, talking to Tom Arnold, so you guys should hang out in this room and enjoy that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It was great. Enjoy the rest of FanX.